Coming up tonight, join OLN for coverage of one of the most challenging adventure races in the world, the 2002 Raid Gawa. Witness the epic efforts of the top adventure racing athletes as they race 600 miles across the untamed landscape of Viet Nam. Stay with us.
Raid Gawas, the adventure race that started it all. From destinations as remote as Nepal and Ecuador, the raid has served as a rite of passage to the upper echelons of the sport. For its 11th running, 255 athletes from 18 countries will battle mountains, jungles, withering heat, and the torrential rain of northern Vietnam. The leg-sapping, spirit-breaking 1,000-kilometer slog is the longest adventure race ever held. From the mist-shrouded mountains of Ba Ka to the limestone spires of Ha Long Bay, it will take some of the world's top athletes to their physical and mental limits, to the brink and beyond. Suffering sleep deprivation, heat exhaustion, and blistered feet, simple decisions turn into major challenges.
If you could choose exactly how your race was going to go, it wouldn't be adventure racing.
Whether running, paddling local watercraft, or mountain biking through jungle trails, each team will be pushed to exceed their limits of performance and emotion.
I've never felt like I couldn't do something in these races, but I feel like I can't do this.
In a race where merely finishing represents a superhuman achievement, those who triumph here have rightly earned a place amongst sport's toughest athletes. Some will last less than a day. Others will soldier on, injured and beaten, but undefeated in their quest to finish the Raid Gawas, Viet Nam.
Welcome to Ha Long Bay on the gorgeous South China Sea. This is just one of the many amazing places here in northern Vietnam, home of the 11th Raid Gawas. The Raid is the world's oldest adventure race, and this year's competition is the longest ever. Those about to embark on this adventure will discover a land of beauty and mystery. Steeped in history, Vietnam is home to a friendly and intriguing people who are as curious about these adventurers as the adventurers are about them. The racers will cross parts of this country very few outsiders have ever seen. They'll be among and learn from the world's most elite endurance athletes. And they'll push themselves beyond the conceivable limits of human endurance. And yet with all this, their greatest discovery may be what they learn about themselves. Witness as 5 athletes come together in that crucible known as an adventure racing team. They're about to experience the incredible highs and the crushing lows of the Raid Gawas.
51 5-person teams are assembled in the hills of northern Vietnam, not far from the Chinese border. The start village of Ba Ka is teeming with locals, dressed immaculately in their traditional colorful denim. To truly appreciate the journey a team makes in the raid, we will follow along with one of the 10 teams from North America, Team Parallax, captained by Tony Molina, is favored to be amongst the frontrunners. The Raid Gawas has built its reputation on remote locations in all corners of the globe. This year's event visits Southeast Asia, and specifically the pristine and verdant countryside of northern Vietnam. Beginning with a grueling 120-kilometer trek, racers must complete the multidiscipline course, calling in at checkpoints or CPs along the way. Beginning on bikes, teams continue on to Assistance Point 1 by paddling canoes. Racers then mountain bike into a breathtaking Tyrolean traverse, where for the first time in the race, gravity and not the racer does the work. Teams take to bamboo rafts before the relentless hiking begins again. Then racers face more biking and paddling before pausing at checkpoint 28 and the second assistance point. With more than half the race behind them, teams begin a trek to the race's only caving section, and then the final compulsory rest point at CP 36. A short paddle in Vietnamese sampans brings teams to the final bike leg. Racers begin the final 260 kilometers after almost 6 days of racing and finish with a marathon sea kayak to Cat Ba. Teams gather at the start line on the only road that goes through Ba Ka. The race has drawn quite a crowd of inquisitive locals, happy to get into the spirit of the race. There's time for a few final nervous exchanges before the starting gun is drowned out by the charge of racers. Despite having 1,000 kilometers ahead of them, 3 pre-race favorites, French teams Eider and Air Tips, and current world champions Nokia from Finland, begin running.
We started the race knowing that we wanted to go out with the lead pace, which whatever that pace was, we didn't know. So we weren't really excited to run off the start. We figured 1,000 kilometers, we should just start walking. But then everybody started running down the road. We said, okay, let's jog with them for a while.
Team captain Tony Molina is a veteran of expedition-length adventure racing. With almost 10 years and countless events behind him, the only thing missing from his race resume is that elusive big win. Teams must be co-ed, which usually, but not always, means 4 men and 1 woman.
After seeing all the maps and how big this course was, main strategy was to take care of ourselves and to make sure we're pacing ourselves and sort of looking to the later events. It was much longer than all the races that happened last year.
Already one of the sport's top racers, Rebecca Rush gets stronger with each competition and also brings world-class paddling skills. She will be racing without injured teammate and close friend Patrick Harper for the first time in 3 years. Rush, Harper, and Jacoby have formed a solid and competitive team core for the past 2 years. 4-time world marathon kayak champion Jacoby is now one of the most successful adventure racers in the sport. He also holds down a full-time job as a senior business banking manager. A veteran of shorter races, Gary Sutherland is daunted by the length of his first Raid Gauloise.
The first trek concerned me being 120k, in the heat and just how your feet would hold up to it. And I figured if we got through that, we could probably get through every leg, just taking it 1 leg at a time.
Australian Sutherland stepped onto the team just 2 weeks ago as a last-minute replacement. Originally an international-level triathlete, Gary has become one of the top adventure racers down under. The man in charge of guiding Team Parallax throughout this year's raid is 32-year-old Novak Thompson. Thompson has taken over the role of team navigator, the perfect job for an Australian orienteering champion and former military man.
It is a large responsibility, and certainly in a race this length, it becomes even a greater responsibility to do it right over and over again.
As the racers begin on their 1,000-kilometer odyssey, temperatures are already over 100 degrees. Coming up, still with the leaders, Parallax must face their first setback.
Gary's not feeling good. So we're already in the survival mode. It's 8 hours into this thing.
With darkness falling and some ominous clouds looming, 3 past winners have established themselves at the front of the race. By running off the start line, they have made their intentions clear. Still together, Checkpoint 3 more resembles Grand Central Station than Vietnam's backcountry. Keeping pace with them is also American Team Parallax, only minutes behind. However, the heat and the pace seem to have taken their toll on last-minute replacement Gary Sutherland.
The first night, fairly early on in the evening, first time the heat probably got to Gary and had to stop and fed him a bit of Gastrolite and tried to get some fluids into him, and you know that slowed him down a bit.
Finding that fine balance between pace and the climate is a major part of any adventure race. Gary's heat problem is helped by the arrival of heavy rains. That, however, poses other problems for the team.
The rain was actually a godsend. I was really struggling in the trek. I think maybe some mild type of heat stroke or something like that. Yeah, a couple of times there I needed to stop. You know, the guys looked after me a little bit, carried my pack for a little bit.
We actually didn't want to stop in the rain because we were freezing, we're all cold, so we actually started running to stay warm. And then attempted to sleep, and it didn't work.
It's impossible to sleep here. Just have the food, but impossible to stay here. It's impossible to sleep here.
Why?
Parce que c'est chez les gens. Ça appartient à quelqu'un ici.
There's too many people here.
Oui.
What initially looks like bad luck soon turns into good fortune for Parallax. As the other teams sleep, Parallax finds themselves in the lead for the first time.
We're in the Zhang mountain village between checkpoints 5 and 6. Checkpoint 5 is the high point on the course at 1,200 meters. The racers will descend from that 4,000-foot elevation through this village on their way to checkpoint 6, where they transition to mountain bikes. It's starting to rain again lightly, but after the 6 hours of heavy rain last night, many of the racers may be asking themselves why they're even here. The Raid Gauloise brings people for many different reasons. Some are here to challenge the forces of nature. Others, to see a new part of the world they might not otherwise ever experience. And some are here for personal reasons.
I told myself after Borneo I'd never go do another jungle race ever again. No leeches, none of that, you know, that I was done with it. And then they announced that the raid was going to be in Vietnam, and I was just like, oh, shoot, because I knew, you know, I'd want to go.
In early 1972, 28-year-old Stephen Rush, father of 2 young girls, was an Air Force lieutenant and F-4 navigator stationed with the 4th Tactical Fighter Squadron in Da Nang, Vietnam.
Airplane that was ahead of him saw some shots and then saw their plane go down and didn't see any ejector seats, didn't see anything like that happen, but I guess it was a real foggy day, so there's kind of sketchy information about what actually happened to them, to the pilot and to my father. I never really knew my father. I don't have any direct memories of him. It's just more of just feeling like I should know about him and know who he was and know what he went through. It'd probably be the closest experience I could ever have, you know, to what he went through.
In one day, the raid has covered more distance in the first trek than most races have in total. Teams are relieved to get off their feet and on their bikes. Experiencing sharing the roads with Vietnamese traffic for the first time, race leaders Parallax start the 95-kilometer bike leg. Unable to find a spot to sleep and forced to run by torrential rain, they have slept only 15 minutes in the last 24 hours.
Your check paper.
As curious locals look on, Parallax prepares for the short hike to the canoes.
We got there knowing that we should sleep, and we said, okay, let's head down to the canoes. And as we were heading down, we thought, if we don't sleep now, we're probably not going to be efficient on the water. So we said, let's go ahead and take a snooze, knowing that they were going to go ahead and pass us.
We decided in that trek that it'd be a good idea to have a sleep because we were worried about staying awake on the boats. So we found a little shelter toward the end of the trek and lay down for an hour, and that's when the other 2 teams came past.
During the trek to the canoes, 2 teams, Eider and Air Tips, have passed a sleeping team Parallax. Despite stopping to sleep on their first night, Eider are back in the lead with their strongest discipline, paddling, to come. Both teams feature past kayaking champions and have captains who have 2 raid victories apiece. French teams have a strong history in the raid, and both Eider and Air Tips are among the pre-race favorites. Eider begin the canoe leg with a half-hour lead over countryman Air Tips. The canoe section will take teams to CP-14, the first assistance point, and a compulsory 3-hour rest. Parallax arrived at the canoes less than an hour behind the leaders. Most of the team is refreshed from the sleep and ready for the 70-kilometer paddle that will take them through the night. But Gary Sutherland is still feeling the effects of the heat, and with nighttime temperatures in the 90s, the team decides to rest him on the paddle. Second place Air Tips slips away into the night as Parallax prepare their canoes. With a 3-hour mandatory stop at the end of this paddle and a chance for Gary to recover, there's no rush on the part of the Americans just yet. As dawn breaks on day 2, teams have been racing almost 48 hours. The leaders are approaching checkpoint 14, the race's first assistance point. After an 8-hour paddle, the mandatory 3-hour stop will come as a welcome relief before the teams bike and trek to the race's ropes section.
We had kind of a trippy night on the water, trying to stay awake. Oh, you know how it is, night on the water, and you're sitting down, and the boat's all squishy and soft, and you just want to sleep.
Knowing that the assistance point, there was 3 of them and that you had to stop for the 3 hours, I was ecstatic about that. Because normally you get into the transition and you're in and you're out and you go. And this was where you knew you had a chance to actually stop and take care of yourself. So I was really excited.
We were all feeling pretty good. Probably a few of us feeling a bit tighter than some of the others, but on the whole we were feeling all right. I think we all slept well at that TA. I certainly did.
As Parallax sleep at the assistance point, leaders Eider prepare to head out on the second bike leg. Their experience in past raids keeps their outlook realistic. At assistance point 1, Parallax and Air Tips are neck and neck again as they assemble their bikes and get ready to head to the Tyrolean Traverse. American Team Parallax is beginning to feel at home in the Vietnamese countryside. They're currently in second place in the world's toughest adventure race.
That's when we started to make our momentum, and we started to see how actually strong we were when we applied it properly. People weren't able to respond. We said, wow, we're handling the hot weather well. You know, we're able to do the pace we want to do. This is our race. It's waiting for us now.
By the time the French team Air Tips reaches the Tyrolean Traverse at CP17, the Americans are out of sight. But the French team still takes time to relax and enjoy the ride. Having biked and trekked 100 kilometers from assistance point 1, teams paddle bamboo rafts to checkpoint 22.
Here they come.
So I think we had 2 people sleeping for 30 minutes at a time, and then the other 2 were paddling and eating. And then we had our feet out, drying our feet, and so we rotated through that for like 4 hours. It was great. And then we pushed hard on the lake to the end of the paddle formally. And so by the time we got off the paddle, even though the French were 30 minutes behind us, we felt as if we had slept a few hours, and we were really fresh.
I got bad news for you.
What is it?
Penalty.
For what?
30 minutes.
For what?
I'll tell you. You are not the only one. In fact, everybody knows that, I can tell you, compared to the others. Apparently, you have a water bottle.
Oh, from 6. From what yeah, we knew. So we serve it right here?
Yeah.
Okay, can we start right now?
Yeah.
Okay. 30 minutes we're serving right here. The penalty, which I think 40 teams out of, penalty was a bit confusing in the way that they described what you were able to leave with your mountain bike equipment. And there was a lot of confusion as to what's mountain bike equipment and what's mountain bike accessory, or I don't know which words they used, but it was just, we left an empty water bottle in our water bottle cage. And I guess that's a penalty.
We had a certain sense of confidence. We could feel it from within. Nobody was saying anything. We could tell that we really kind of caught our flow, and we were in the groove. And we said, Rebecca and I were saying, wow, we're really starting to move well together. And that's, we don't say that often.
Although in the lead, it's taken Parallax a while to shake the challenge of French veterans Eider. By the time night falls on day 4, Parallax is nearing checkpoint 24 with a 6-hour lead.
We knew we were leading. We were focusing on keeping good momentum going. We were pushing hard though. We were trying to do our pace, and it was a fast pace. And so there'd be moments where people were like, gosh, we're going pretty good here, isn't it good enough? And then it was just the pace that we were used to doing, and we kind of talked about it. We said, well, we should just keep our pace. Nothing should change right now. And then we kept noticing that we were slowly getting incremental larger leads with it, so that was pretty exciting.
Coming into that, there was the sleepy hike from hell. I just couldn't stay awake. And we had planned we were going to sleep before the bike, so there's no point in stopping and sleeping on this road 30 minutes before the bikes. So we just pushed to get there, and John's telling me stories. I'm, yelling out, "Somebody talk to me, keep me awake." And, he actually had a pole, and so I was holding on to his pole and sort of sleepwalking. And it's one of the hardest things in these races is to fight sleep deprivation, because when your body shuts down, your mind can no longer say, okay, I'm awake, I can do it.
Helped through her fatigue by her teammates, Rebecca Rush and Parallax managed to shake off sleep until the transition area. Here, the team sticks to its 1 hour per night sleep plan and settles down for some much-needed rest before getting back on the bikes. Back in the lead and back on the water, American Team Parallax have covered almost 600 of the race's 1,000 kilometers. Two French teams, Eider and Air Tips, had challenged for the lead over the earlier parts of the course, but approaching Assistance Point 2, the American-Aussie combo has forged a huge lead. The team has been without their strongest paddler, John Jacoby, who, feeling ill, has slept and rested on this canoe leg.
In that leg, I didn't hardly paddle at all. I just slept and vegetated in the boat. I tried to paddle a few strokes, and I'd paddle maybe 10 or 20 strokes and feel exhausted. That's how bad I was feeling.
This is the third time in the race that Parallax has nursed a sick teammate. First Gary, then Novak, and John. With those three setbacks in mind, the team is surprised that other teams are not closing in.
TA2, totally in shock that no one still had checked in at the beginning of the paddle by the time we got to TA2. We're just like, what? I think someone said, no, you guys have like a 7-hour lead. And just like, no way, this is impossible. This doesn't happen in adventure racing. And I kept thinking, somebody's injured, something's happened, this is too good to be true. And it was too good to be true.
We're at checkpoint 28, Pak Noi, also known as Assistance Point number 2, one of the few spots on the course where racers can meet up with support crews for resupply and badly needed rest. Here it's a mandatory 3 hours. Team Parallax has just arrived in first position. At this point in the race, and with a guaranteed 6-hour lead, thoughts of invincibility can't help but creep into a racer's mind.
I think now we have got such a huge lead. I'll get into TA2, seeing that we've been gone for 3 hours, and realise that they're at least maybe 6 hours behind, and they just mentally lose it. Very to come back and say, right, we're going to put in a super big effort and pull in 6 hours on someone when you're already stuck.
As second-placed Air Tips paddle into Assistance Point 2, 3 hours have passed since Parallax left. With the compulsory 3-hour rest, the lead is confirmed at just over 6 hours. Less than an hour behind the French team, Finn's Nokia have moved up to 3rd place. Previous leaders Eider have slipped to 4th place, 8 hours off the lead. With the biggest lead of the race and Jacoby recovered from a short spell of sickness, things are looking good for Parallax. The efforts of nursing a teammate back to health, however, begin to take their toll.
My relatively small problem might have been the beginning, or one of the things that compounded Gary's problems. When they took my pack, Gary took my pack for a while. Now in hindsight, if he wasn't feeling that good, and I don't think he was feeling that good after the paddle, he shouldn't have done that.
Nearer the finish, towards checkpoint 31, the unpredictable nature of adventure racing is playing out. Parallax's huge lead is in jeopardy. No sooner is Jacoby nursed back to normal and carrying his own pack than the excitement of leading the race begins to evaporate. Another teammate succumbs to problems.
Having one of those bad moments, I started realising that I was having a problem. And I just thought it was, at first I just thought it was a sleep deprivation thing, because I was just a little off balance, especially when I had to use the headlamp. That's when I really noticed it, that I was feeling a little off balance, like I was struggling with coordination.
When he got sick, I was pissed off. That's what I was. I was like, I wanted to kick him in the gut. I'm like, come on, this isn't the time. You could do this any other time in your life. Just don't do this right now.
Well, my water purification drops have changed colour to white from yellow. And when they go white, that means they're ineffective. And I didn't pick it up straight away, so I think if I was more switched on and had picked that up, I may not have got sick at all. So I mean, you can only drink so much water with buffalo crap in it before you get sick.
American Team Parallax seemed to have the 11th Raid Gauloise sewn up. In less than a day, however, their lead has dropped to just 2 hours over second-place Air Tips, who are also being caught by Team Nokia. At CP32 and still 65 kilometers from Assistance Point 3, Parallax must figure out a race-saving strategy.
We walked out of the mountains to that road that went to the cave, and as we were walking out, we were having one-on-one conversations with each other without Gary. We were talking, we were like, and I talked to Novak, I'm like, what are we gonna do? Something has to happen here. He's like, I know, mate. It was hard to figure out how we were gonna get him because he had shut down. He was exhausted. He looked like he was gonna just drop from heat exhaustion. And we were afraid the doctors might pull him when we got to the cave.
With his temperature soothed by the river, Parallax's Gary Sutherland relishes the thought of the cool air of the race's only caving section, a trek through a cavern once used by the Vietnamese to store ammunition during wars with France and the United States. After an extremely rough 24 hours, Parallax welcomes the break from the blistering sun. As Parallax enjoy the cool air of the caving section, they are unaware that Air Tips and Nokia are already getting into their climbing gear. Both teams have powered past French team Eider, who are now 5 hours back. Air Tips is a scant 20 minutes behind the lead, with Nokia another 20 minutes behind them. At this point in the race, 12 teams, 20% of the field, have abandoned or lost a racer and dropped from the official rankings. Also dropping precipitously is Parallax's lead.
Our intention was to get out of the caves and probably have a bit more of a rest because we thought, they won't have caught us, they won't be near us yet. And then, we got out, and to the surprise, they said, there's 2 teams in there. And we thought, oh, bloody hell, this is, well, I was quietly saying, this isn't good. We weren't in a position to hit the accelerator button.
Onto the next bike leg, Jacoby is still carrying Gary's pack and towing him. Once they leave the road, towing will not be an option. It's been a long and steady chase for French team Air Tips. Parallax, who have nursed a sick teammate for almost 24 hours, are incredibly still in the lead. Close behind, neither Air Tips nor Nokia have led the race yet, and they sense their opportunity. There is still a long way to go to Assistance Point 3, so frustrations must take a back seat to maintaining whatever forward progression is possible.
Cool. It was dark out.
Knowing that their time in the lead is running out, Parallax savor the bike ride before the inevitable happens. Sick teammate Sutherland has relinquished his pack, but can still barely muster the strength to pedal his bike.
We were riding like a bunch of old women. It was to ride. I was feeling strong and feeling good, and I was carrying 2 packs at the time, and so Gary had no packs at all, and he still wasn't riding strong.
So we knew as we were coming out of the cave, we heard reports that 2 other teams were already in the cave. So it was like, okay, this is the reality of our decisions are at this point. And then we knew we were going to get passed on the mountain bike, which we were fine with. We really just were hoping now that we were just going to even stay in the race. We weren't sure. I thought he was going to drop. I didn't think he was going to want to go on once we got to the next transition.
Do you have some water for Gary? Oh, they're tips, never mind. We're getting past, and we knew it was going to happen. It's like, all right, there they are. We've been waiting for you guys. Hi, bye. And again, just hoping that, by the time we got to TA3, maybe we could put on another push.
The placid beauty of rural Vietnam is broken by the familiar honking signifying the arrival of air tips, first team into Assistance Point 3. Onlookers unaware of Parallax's problems are stunned as the French team and not Parallax check in first. The trek and bike from Assistance Point 2 cover only 146 kilometers, but have totally changed the face of the race. Parallax arrived shortly behind, but a million miles from the highs and happiness of just 24 hours ago.
We came into Transition 3 and we were glad it was, again, a transition where we were able to stop because we needed to stop and regroup. And Rebecca and I went and took showers and we were talking. We were like, we're leading the raid. You know, we had 7 hours, you know, it's gone now.
The ride was hard because we have a sick person, as I'm sure you guys have heard the gossip, and we really just wanted to get him here so he can recover, but it was definitely a push to get him. But now, you know, he's in a spot where we can get him well again, but sitting out on the course, just, you know, we're moving slower and slower, so it was good to get here, but he worked hard. It was definitely a team effort.
Drop your packs over here, put them all in one spot.
Been a bit dehydrated. That's it. I'll get loaded up then you're right.
Where's JJ? What's he doing? Because I'd like to have a little team powwow before we all go off and go to bed. Talk about what the plan is.
You're
Here's your supplies. And I was sort of looking to the Aussies who know him better for some help. Like, look, you know, I don't want to be the mother on the team. I was trying to hold things together. Novak's navigating, you know. We were all sort of putting our 2 cents in, but I was really kind of looking for more of a group help to make sure we did the right thing.
Parallax thought that getting to Assistance Point 3 would solve their problems. But as individual racers take care of themselves, Gary looks more isolated than ever. Their short-term goal achieved, Parallax seems devoid of the motivation and momentum that got them here. Nokia, who arrived in 3rd place, are out ahead of Parallax. The Finns have raced conservatively in the oppressive heat and are now within an hour of the lead and starting to gain.
Don't wait for the water, don't wait.
Hey, excuse me.
You can start on the...
Sorry?
I think we ended up walking out of there 10 minutes later than we should have. So, you know, overall it wasn't too bad. Plus, you know, I had 2 bags of fluid in me and the food I'd eaten. So, you know, I was brand new.
Believing that maybe now they can gain back some of their lost time, Parallax soon realized they're in for a long, wet night. Parallax take to the water again in a different boat, but it won't be long before that sinking feeling returns.
So we sank the first one. All the kids in the town are laughing at us. We're, you know, collecting our stuff, swimming back to shore with the boat. And they give us another boat. This one we sort of stay afloat for a little bit, and they keep our backpacks, keep the weight out of it. We're like, okay, this might work. But then they decide that's not fair. They got to give us our backpacks back. So 100 yards down, they give us our backpacks, and we're all just like, we had again hoped to use this as a rest for Gary. We wanted him to sit in the middle and sleep while we all paddled. But that wasn't to happen. He became master bailer, man, you know, and had to like be bailing actually faster than we were paddling. So I think he was actually working harder.
And so then we got to the final point where we had to do this large crossing, and there was no way the boat was going to make it.
Adventure racing holds one tenet: no outside assistance. Stranded on an island and unable to find the race's safety boat, Parallax flagged down a passing film crew.
Well, I have a phone, but it doesn't work. Can you take us to across the lake?
Yeah, we gotta get going.
We got to get moving, otherwise, you know, we're stuffing up all our, you know, night and day.
We're obviously willing to do whatever you guys want to do.
Well, I don't think we have any other option. We're stranded here on an island without a seaworthy vessel. Are you happy to do that?
Absolutely.
Let's go.
Yeah, I was fully aware that this could be disqualification right here. This is it. But I also had thought about, okay, our choices are to sit here all night on this island with our flashers on with nobody coming, or, you know, start this bike ride and deal with it later. And, you know, I felt we exhausted the avenues that were out there for us, the options that were there for us, and I felt we had a valid argument for it, so I was willing to go to bat for that if we needed to. But yeah, I knew they could disqualify us.
It's a decision that gets the team back on course, but leaves them not knowing if their race is already done.
You know, we've spent now nearly 2 hours messing around with bailing the boat and waiting for a rescue and all that kind of stuff. So, I don't know. It's up to the French now. Hopefully they'll be fair, you know, because it's not our fault.
As leaders Air Tips and Nokia prepare for the final trek, the race jury must make a ruling on Parallax's aborted sampan ride. An underlying rule of adventure racing is no outside assistance. In persuading a film crew to take them across the last leg of the sampan section, American Team Parallax broke that rule. In their favor is the fact that after the first 4 teams in the race also sank, and fearing a safety issue, the race organizers replaced all sampans with the inflatable canoes used on other sections of the race.
Emotional and feel as if, you know, you've achieved something and you've done well, and this one just didn't have that at all. It was just total empty feeling, as if I've completely stuffed this one. So yeah, I was ready to walk up the steps and pack up and go home.
Spent a lot of the time on that paddle just kind of reminiscing about what happened and my thoughts about it, and, you know, and how I felt about it and everything we'd gone through. I spent a lot of the time doing that and sort of, you know, wishing some things had been different, but also feeling really proud of a lot of the things that we did, and really proud of our race and what we were handed. You know, we had such a wild ride in this race. I mean, I've never been in a race that has changed so much like that. And, you know, I feel good about the way we finished. I would have liked to keep that 7-hour lead overall and have nobody get sick, but, you know, if you could choose exactly how your race was going to go, it'd just be really boring, probably. I thought a lot about things during the race, you know, what the guys in the military must have been thinking, sitting out there in the rain in the middle of the night and in the mud, and just how odd it must have been to, like, I know they had interactions with these villagers and these people, and I'm sure that there was constant moral dilemma for the military people for what they were doing, and, you know, I don't know that I could do it. It would have been really hard.
Completion of the 2002 Raid Gauloise can technically be defined as traveling 230 miles on foot, 210 miles by bike, and 150 miles on water across the stunning landscape of northern Vietnam. While some have suffered more than others, and some have achieved more than others, they have all defined themselves through the camaraderie of shared hardship and emotion, and they have all faced the challenge of being a member of an adventure racing team in the 2002 Raid Gauloise.